closing disclosure and clear to close. They're two different things, but they kind of go hand in hand. Now, each lender issues a closing disclosure and a clear to close, okay? Some lenders will not issue the closing disclosure until they issue the CTC, the clear to close, okay? Some lenders will release the closing disclosure, okay, before the clear to close, provided that many of the conditions or certain conditions are cleared on the file itself. There may be still a few outstanding conditions, and they'll release the closing disclosure ahead of the clear to close. Okay, so ask your loan originator, and don't be confused, especially your realtors. Hey, the CD's out, we're good to go. No, not necessarily. We got a few more items to clear up before we get a clear to close. But releasing a CD early can be very beneficial to all parties, knowing that the file is in its final stages and they know they have to wait, because the closing disclosure has a 3-day waiting period from when it's acknowledged by all borrowers on a file. Okay, now your closing disclosure is going to be slightly different from your loan estimate, in that these items are still at a higher point, but they also now include the real estate commissions and the real estate fees involved into it. So you want to look at that because a few items have changed on it. But when that closing disclosure goes out and those fees, we want you to acknowledge it. Every lender wants you to acknowledge it. You can speak, you can ask questions about the pricing on it, but at least acknowledge it. It's still not a commitment for you to sign. It's still not your final cost. Your final closing disclosure will be at the closing table. You're acknowledging the first. So what happens is, in this closing disclosure that you acknowledge are going to still be the highest possible costs that you can be charged. Okay? So acknowledge it. Now, the lender, the loan originator, the realtors will have a little bit of say on it, but basically the title company and the closing department, the lender, are going to work on reducing and what they call balancing out that CD. So most often, the CD, the cost in the CD drop because everything starts to get finalized. So they may see that the appraisal originally on an LE was $525, but the appraisal came in at $475, so you'll knock $50 off there. The proration of taxes and insurance, maybe you're closing a few days early, so the proration of taxes and insurance will change. Maybe you're closing a few days later than intended, so there'll be some changes there. But you may get a better seller credit, because if the closing is pushed out a couple days, you get more seller credit as far as the taxes, like in the state of Florida, because the taxes are paid in arrears. If the taxes are paid in advance, you won't get it. It'll cost you a little bit more. Depending on what day you're closing, the interest proration on the loan may change. So you're going to see some changes in balancing out that CD, so it's still not your final number. Acknowledge it, talk to your loan originator, ask what he expects to drop and what not, okay? And then your closing disclosure is when the underwriter finally clears all items on the file. Remember, you have QC, okay, quality control. They're going to look at that if your file gets picked or audited for an audit or a quality control, to be hit by quality control. Some lenders, when the file is mostly, all the conditions are in on the approval and the underwriter's looking at it, some lenders are really good at starting the quality control process at that time, and they issue a couple of conditions they want before the CTC so it doesn't delay things. So each lender works differently, but know this process. This is where you're at near the end game, going to the closing table. I hope that was helpful for you. Have a good day.